Thanks for tuning in to the Lean 911 podcast, where you'll have a voice directly from the Gemba. I will rely on my 3 decades of lean successes as well as my failures to answer your most challenging questions regarding your lean transformation. I'm your host, Mark DeLuzio, President and CEO of Lean Horizons Consulting and the Principal Architect of the Danaher Business System. Looking forward to your questions. Now, let's go to the Gemba. Hi, Mark DeLuzio back at you. Episode 74, titled Stop Misusing the Two-Bin Kanban System. Before I get into the subject matter, let's just do a little bit of a review of what a Kanban is. First of all, we all know Kanban means signboard, and it's more about the information flow than it is about the product flow. And again, I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of Kanban today, but I do want to talk about why we have Kanban. Simply because we cannot connect processes to do flow. It's that simple. So let's think about it. What is flow? Flow means the product doesn't stop. It goes right through your production process like water through a garden hose. It never stops. When a process has to stop or the product has to stop, it needs to sit somewhere, and that's the Kanban system. And there are all the calculations that we do at Kanban and all that. So when you're using Kanban, sometimes we refer to as a supermarket. That is a form of a pull system, assuming it's done properly, okay? That it's not a flow system, it's a pull system where people come to the Kanban and remove what is required for the next process. Why is it called supermarket? Way back when Tashi Ono came to the United States, he actually went to a grocery store, which is still in existence today, I believe, called Piggly Wiggly. And he noticed that all the products in the grocery store were on shelves, and people walked up to these shelves and pulled off what they needed, whether it's a box of cereal, a can of corn, whatever it was. And then at periodic times, the stock clerk would come around and fill in the shelves where a product was missing. That's where he came up and conceptualized the whole idea of Kanban, and sometimes Kanbans are called supermarkets. So anyway, but that's a pull system, right? The grocery store does not decide what they're going to send to you and deliver a bunch of groceries to your home on your front step at any time of the day. That would be a push system. And that's how a lot of factories today are created. We push product, we produce it, and we push it to the next operation, whether they need it or not, which is one of the fallacies of an MRP system. Okay, when you schedule your shop floor that way, and everything is somewhat disjointed. Okay, so there's your basics right there. That's all I'm going to say about Kanban, except that when our sensei, Chihiro Nakao, said to me one day, and remember who he was one of the first lieutenants of Taishi Ono who implemented the Toyota production system. And he said to me one day, he said, DeLuzio-san, I don't understand Americans. You guys are infatuated with Kanban. The first thing you want to do is put Kanban systems in place. But what you should be doing is thinking about, how do I flow? How do I flow product? You'll find that you won't need Kanban and all that inventory and the management and the lost cards or whatever you do to transact your Kanban. Shoot for flow first. How do you combine processes that flow as opposed to having the product stop and then be pulled to the next part of the process? Okay, so the other thing he told us was Kanban should be used as a tool for continuous improvement. And we kind of scratched our head. What do you mean by that? Well, let's just say you have 500 units in your Kanban. What if you said, I'm only going to allow 250 units in that Kanban system? What would the ramifications be? Common responses might be, oh my God, I'm going to shut down our production. Well, why? And here you go into the 5 whys, right? because our setup times are too long and we won't be able to replenish the combine. We'll run out of parts. Or we have safety stock in this combine because, we have a lot of machine downtime. We have quality problems. We have vendor reliability issues. Go down the list of the things that could go wrong. And all of a sudden, you're going to find that when you challenge yourself to reduce your combine, say by 50%, all the reasons why you can't do it should be subjects for your next set of Kaizens. Okay? Because you're hiding the problems with the inventory in the Kanban. All right. Okay, now let's talk about the subject at hand, the two-bin Kanban system. I've seen many Kanbans set up with just two bins. And I would ask why. Well, we're using the two-bin Kanban system. That's usually the answer I get. Well, why aren't you using more containers? Because we're driving a two-bin Kanban system. Yeah, you already told me that, but why did you decide to use two containers? Because we're incorporating the two-bin Kanban system. Okay, so the story goes on and on and on and on, right? So the two-bin Kanban is used at the line where the operator is producing parts. So let's just say you have an assembly process and you have a bin of, let's make the math easy, 60 units in a bin. By putting two bins of 60 at that station, when the operator gets done with the first set of 60, the second tray comes in, that's your two bins, for that operator to start using. Now let's just assume, and again, I'm making the math really easy, that the takt time is 1 minute. That means those 60 units are going to be consumed in the time of 1 minute, 1 hour. Okay, 60 units times 1 minute. That means the water spider has 60 minutes to pick up the empty container and bring back a full container for the operator, because when she depletes the 60, she's going to need that second tray. That's your two-bin Kanban system right there, and that's called the pitch. Okay, the pitch being 60 units, 60 minutes. Okay, that's called the pitch, where you take your takt time times the number of units in a container. All right. But I've seen Kanbans, and this happened to me at Danaher, where I would challenge, supplier Kanbans or even work in process Kanbans, and they're using two bins. And in order to see, remember when you make improvements to your Kanban, to your process, you should, let's say everything else being equal. Let's just say, for example, your demand stays the same, your takt time doesn't change. Okay, just to make the math and the concept easier to understand. In order for me to take out inventory from my Kanban, I have to make fundamental improvements to my process, either with setup times or with machine reliability, quality, whatever is holding you up that caused you to have that inventory to begin with. So let's just say that a Kanban has 1,000 units in it. But the company decided to use a two bin system, so they have two bins of 500 each. I've got to make enough improvements to get down to 500 units because I only have two containers. But if I broke that 1,000 up into 100 unit bins, I can take increments of 100 out of that Kanban as I'm making improvements. So I can conceivably go from 100, I'm sorry, from 1,000 to 900 as I make improvements. I make further improvements. I can go to 800. Eventually, I go to 700. I don't have to wait until I hit that 500 unit mark. So two bin Kanbans are not designed for your primary supermarket. That's for the line itself to keep the operator operating and not running out of parts. And let's not forget some fundamentals here. Operators should operate. They should never go out and fetch parts. They should never go out and fetch tools. If they have a standard work sequence per their standard work, that's all they should be doing right now. Operators should operate. They shouldn't go fetch parts. They shouldn't go bring product down a finished goods, shipping area, or go look for tools or rags or supplies. Okay, people think that they're more productive when they operate to do 5,000 things, and then they wonder at the end of the day, hey, how come we didn't get our product out? And start blaming the operator, right? That's where the water spider comes in, or the material handler, if you will. The Japanese would call it water spider. Because the water, how it explained to me, the water spider jumps from point to point on the pond. Okay. And that's what they want a water spider to do. No different than the pit crew. We do not want the driver of a Formula One car changes his own tires or getting out of the car and, doing whatever they have to do to get that car back on the track. Well, no, we want that driver to stay on the track as long as possible. So think about the operator in their standard work sequence as the racetrack. We want that operator to stay on that track as long as possible. So we don't want the operator leaving the cell looking for materials. That's where the water spider comes in. But we also don't want the operator to run out of parts. So as we construct our two-bin Kanban inside the cell itself, that's where that happens. Not in your primary Kanban. I've actually seen big containers in a Kanban with 400 or 500 units in each container. Okay. You're never really going to make inventory improvements when you make process improvements, simply because your containers are too darn big. And good luck with saying, well, I'm only going to have 100 in that container that holds 500. Good luck controlling that. You've just lost total visual management. I should be able to look at a Kanban and know very simply how much inventory I've got there. If I have to now have X-ray vision and look through a container to find out how much is in there, I'm never going to be able to control what the heck it is I have, and I'll never be able to detect the abnormalities, right? I mean, I can look at a container and say, we got a full container there when it's not full. It's only got 100 parts when it should have 500. So we want to be able to size our Kanban in the smallest possible increments that make the most sense, okay? And, there's no ground rule I have. Maybe somebody out there does have some kind of ground rule, but use common sense here. And ideally, that container should be something that you could take right to the line to the operator, so you're not putting parts into another container and causing all the extra material handling. Where only bad things can happen when you do that. Okay, so so that's my message on the two-bin Kanban. I see it being misused over the years. I've seen it so many times, and by some pretty good lean people. I remember talking to this one vice president of operations at Danaher, and I said, well, he argued with me, right? I said, well, your inventory turns are never gonna get better than 7 because, and I'll come back in a year and you still will be at that number. And sure enough, I did come back and I did remember to ask him, and he did not make any inventory improvements because his Kanbans were too big with his two bins. Had he broken those Kanbans down into, let's say, 8 or 10 containers, he could have taken out increments as he made improvements, but he was kind of stuck. You have to make a 50% improvement to take that one bin out because that represents 50% of your inventory. And you got to remember, your inventory is a reflection of your lead times. Okay, so so that's my message to you. I see the mistake being made a lot. And again, in the year of the basics, I just talked about the basics in my last episode. This is the fundamental basic here that you should be thinking about. So if you're sizing all your Kanbans with two bins, go back and rethink that. Break it down further so you can make inventory reductions as you make process improvements. Ideally, that container that you're using in your Kanban should be transferable right to the line for the operator. So you're not doing extra sorting, extra material handling. Okay. That's all I want to say for this episode. Episode 74. Stop misusing the two bin Kanban. It's really not that difficult, but it's easy to get sideways on stuff like this. So hopefully this will help you. And let me know what your thoughts are. Mark at lean911.com. Okay? Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. And stay lean. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Lean 911 podcast. I'll be happy to address your questions or feedback on future episodes. Email me at mark@lean911.com. You can check out our other episodes by visiting our website at lean911.com, our YouTube channel, wherever you listen to podcasts. This is your host, Mark DeLuzio. Thanks for listening.